He wasted his time until one mirror showed him the truth. It was just another ordinary day in the city when a lazy boy named Billy entered the mall with his mom. But this time something was different. Instead of going to the food court, he found himself inexplicably drawn to a peculiar antique store filled with dusty trinkets. The moment he stepped inside, an eerie silence enveloped him. Then his gaze fell upon a large, ornate mirror tucked away in a dimly lit corner. As he approached it, its surface rippled like water, and when it cleared, it revealed a shocking sight. Staring back at him was not his own reflection, but the reflection of a stranger, someone who looked exactly like him, yet seemed vastly different. This other Billy was well-dressed, confident, and radiating an inexplicable charm. Startled by this apparition, Billy recoiled only to find himself inexplicably drawn back to the mirror. It beckoned to him, its depths promising untold secrets. Hesitantly, he reached out, expecting a jolt or a trick, yet what he felt was a profound sense of familiarity. And as the realization dawned on him, his heart lurched. This vision was not a ghost or a figment of his imagination. It was a mirror reflecting a life he could have lived, a life that was the antithesis of his own. In this alternate reality, he wasn't the awkward, unmotivated teenager he saw every day. He was everything he had ever dreamed of being. To say he was shocked would be an understatement. It was as if the mirror was a portal into a parallel universe where decisions made were in stark contrast to his own. In this reality, he excelled academically, was captain of the football team, and had a girlfriend who adored him. But it wasn't just about success. There was a depth to this alternate self that resonated with Billy on a profound level. He saw kindness, compassion, and a quiet confidence that he yearned for within himself. As he continued to stare, more fragments of this life flickered through the mirror's surface. He saw himself graduating high school with honors, receiving accolades, making choices that were not just smart but brave. Each passing moment was like a punch to the gut, a stark reminder of the life he had wasted. The comfortable life he had been living with his mom since his parents' divorce suddenly felt suffocating. His once beloved video games now seemed like a pathetic escape. Even his friends, who he thought were loyal, appeared vapid and uninspiring in comparison. Billy had always considered himself average, never particularly good at anything, never particularly bad. He just sort of coasted through life. But now standing in front of that mirror, he realized how tragically wrong he had been. He wasn't average. He was actually quite talented. It was him, after all, who had the artistic flair, the knack for languages, the athleticism that peeked through in gym class. He had it all. Or rather, he could have had it all. And the worst part was he knew this. He had the potential, the drive, but somewhere along the way he had chosen to ignore it, to bury it under the rubble of complacency and bad decisions. He didn't even know when things had shifted. When had he turned from the bright-eyed kid who loved learning into the sullen teenager who couldn't be bothered? The answer, of course, was gradual, insidious, almost imperceptible. It wasn't a single moment of wrongdoing, but a series of them. Staying out past curfew, skipping classes with a truancy officer breathing down his neck, choosing video games over his father's little league. All of these moments, once justified as just a little white lie or a harmless bit of fun, had compounded into a life that was unrecognizable to him now. The pain of realizing this was excruciating. But, as the shock wore off, a new emotion began to take hold. Determination. Looking back, he understood that while he couldn't change what had happened, he could change what was happening. He could change what was going to happen. He didn't have to live the rest of his life as a mediocre man. He still had a chance to rewrite his story. Taking a deep breath, Billy stepped away from the mirror. As he did, the reflection shimmered one last time before vanishing, leaving him face to face with the harsh reality of his situation. But instead of despair, he felt resolute. The path ahead might be long and arduous, but he was no longer afraid of hard work. In fact, he was eager to start. His first step was simple: talking to his mother. She was the anchor that had kept him afloat after the divorce, and he knew she worried about him. Her gentle nature, though, meant she often let things slide, hoping he'd grow out of it. Now, looking into her kind eyes, he saw not just concern, but a hint of disappointment. That hurt more than any harsh words could have. With newfound respect and love for his mom, he promised her he'd try harder, do better, be the young man she knew he could be. And then he went to see his dad. The two hadn't been particularly close since the separation, and Billy knew this visit would be tough. His father was a successful businessman who often put work before family, and while he tried to be a good role model, Billy knew he also expected certain things from his son, things Billy had never given him. Walking into his dad's office, he was met with a sea of toys. Every game Billy had ever wanted sat right there, silently mocking him. It was almost comical if it wasn't so painful. But then his dad walked in, and the walls Billy had built around his heart started crumbling. Looking at his son, he saw not just disappointment, but a flicker of hope, a plea for understanding. It was in that moment that they both broke down. His dad told him about the struggles he'd faced. the sacrifices he'd made to give Billy and his sister a good life. And Billy, in turn, shared his thoughts, his dreams, his fears. It was a turning point. They talked for hours, and by the end, they had a new understanding. His dad wasn't just his parent, he was a friend, a confidant. The next day, Billy woke up with a new sense of purpose. He started small, tidying his room, helping his mom around the house. These simple acts might seem insignificant, but they were monumental in Billy's journey. They were the mortar between the bricks of his new life. Then he tackled school. He began paying attention in class, doing his homework. It was hard at first. Years of neglect had left him rusty, but he persevered. Slowly, he started getting good grades, even becoming a peer tutor, something he never would have imagined before. He also joined the football team, drawn to the sense of camaraderie and discipline. Initially, he was just another player, but he worked hard. He studied plays, trained during breaks, lifted weights. Within months, he was a starter. His teammates became more than colleagues. They became brothers in arms. Together, they faced challenges, celebrated victories, creating memories that went beyond the gridiron. Throughout this journey, Billy never forgot the mirror's message. It served as a constant reminder of his potential, a beacon guiding him towards excellence. There were times when he wanted to quit, when the effort seemed too great, the outcome too uncertain. But then he'd close his eyes, picture the disappointed look in his alternate self's eyes, and push harder. Years passed, and Billy graduated high school as an honor student and star player. As he stood on the podium, ready to receive his diploma, he looked out at the crowd, searching for his parents. Their faces beamed with pride, and in their eyes he saw not just love and happiness, but gratitude. He had not only rewritten his story, but made them proud as well. That night, celebrating with his friends, he raised a mocktail and a toast. 2 second chances, to hard work, and most importantly, to believing in yourself even when no one else does. For Billy, the road to success was long and arduous. There were times when failure loomed, threatening to derail his progress. But he pressed on. He didn't just want to succeed, he wanted to excel. He wanted to prove to himself and to the world that he was more than just a product of circumstance. Now standing tall and confident, he knew that, while the alternate version of himself might have had a different set of circumstances, he had something that the other Billy didn't have: a burning desire to carve his own path to rise above mediocrity and shine. The wasted time still stung, but it had become fuel, propelling him forward with relentless energy. Now looking back, he understood that the pain of regret was heavier than any failure. As the night wound down and his friends finally dispersed, Billy found himself standing alone in front of the mirror in that same antique shop. But this time it wasn't a stranger he saw staring back at him. It was him, the real him, the person he had become because he dared to look within, dared to dream big, and dared to work hard. In his eyes, he saw not just determination, but a glimmer of happiness, a quiet satisfaction that whispered, "You made the right choice. You chose to fight for your life. And in doing so, you became everything you were meant to be."